just hear it and they go, maybe it's that stuff. Maybe it's that thing that happened. I heard about that. I mean,
I can see that happening just because they just want to put some type of button on it.
Right. Put an answer on something.
Yep.
Well, I want to talk about one case that is extraordinarily rare to have somebody who's lived through this and lived to tell the tale. But there is a person who claims to have survived spontaneous human combustion, and that's Frank Baker, who was going out on a fishing trip when he suddenly caught on fire. He claims that there was no source of fire, like a candle or a cigarette, just nothing in the nearby area. And after his friend helped stop the flames, he went to the hospital and claims that the doctor said that the fire came from inside out. So now we have a situation where someone might be claiming the story, but that's all we really have there. You would think that if they went to the hospital, that there would be some sort of documentation. I would be deeply fascinated to hear from this doctor to say, like, did you not, like, really look in there? Did you have, like, some sort of endoscopic camera that you could take pictures of, like, the stomach lining being burnt or something, something, right? But it's interesting.
I mean, that was my thought exactly, right? Mm-hmm. If this person said that this happened, then where's the evidence? Because then
this person's writing a paper, all right? They're getting huge grant money for this. They're not ghosting their only living, spontaneous human combustion case. Like, there would be news here.
Right. And I feel like it's something that, I mean, because firefighters, like, you can track a fire.
True.
You can see, like, the origin, like, the point of where it sparks and burns. It's because the way things are burnt and the markings and everything like that, and chemicals and whatnot. I would assume to some degree, if this person was set on fire and still alive, there'd be some part of the body that was burnt more so than others.
Right.
And then boom, there's your evidence, there's your documentation. Now, whether or not this person did it to themselves, who knows? Like, that's a whole different thing. But you can at least verify that much.
Right. And let me ask the question. How did you put it out if it started inside? And if it started as a chemical, there are chemical reactions that are exothermic that essentially release heat a la fire, but don't need oxygen to burn, much like thermite, in which case, good luck putting it out. So if it can burn inside of you, and then the doctor is saying it's coming from inside of you, how did you and your friend put it out? And how did you basically sustain no damage, right? No lasting damage. This is a story that I think is a bit of a farce, but I wanted to mention it because it is intriguing, and it is one of the few cases of somebody saying, hey, I had this and I lived.
Yeah, I think that it's very interesting to note and to bring up, simply because in my mind, I was thinking there's at least one. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, there's at least one. Yeah, for me, I guess I just can't ride with it simply because, come on, like, there's got to be so much evidence and documentation, and there's no way that, just kind of believed it and then patched them up and sent them on their way. I don't know. Yeah. I would think there'd be a lot of, like, evidence.
Yeah. And to me, when it comes to evidence and investigating these cases, I think the biggest thing to me is that when you look at these investigations now, they tend to be led by paranormal investigators rather than forensic scientists or other science fields, because scientists as a whole tend to deny the possibility of a fire starting without any sort of external source. And I guess, science doesn't know what it doesn't know yet, but we know quite a bit now, especially about fire, chemical reactions. And so I think there is something kind of baked in when you start to hear that it's mostly paranormal pseudoscience investigators that it kind of starts to tip your thoughts one way over the other. But
true.
But having said that, what's interesting is that there was a forensic analyst, John F. Fisher, and a paranormal skeptic, Joe Nickell, that both led a 2-year-long study on SHC back in 1984. Now, this is where some interesting kind of points come out. So they used common qualities from many reported cases to try to explain what was going on with this phenomenon, but they focused on the death of Monsieur Charbonnier in 1847. This particular case was the death of a person who was found laying in bed, almost completely burned, with a small white flame that was still burning. So now we have witnesses of saying, okay, well, there's still a flame happening here, and it's very small and very white, so maybe there's a unique case here. Well, they found that most of the victims, when they were doing this study, were actually near some kind of flame, counter to what was said earlier. But that newspapers left that detail out, so that way the story felt a little bit more ominous. So on one hand, we have people saying there's no flames in there. You know, the story is there's no flames. But they're finding, when they looked a little deeper, that there were, in fact, possible sources of flame in most of these cases. And that to make it a little bit more sensational, right, you need to sell papers. Let's just leave that out, make people go, wow. They also said that because of intoxication, and that was a common trait here, you know, the drinking, was that victims were more likely to stumble into flames and they could not properly respond by whether it's stop, drop, roll, right? The basics, taking off the clothes, finding a way to put out the flame, getting help or whatever. And so basically, if they were severely intoxicated, it would be something where they couldn't properly react and that it would just kind of engulf them.
But to me, that just seems like a common fire. And in that case, why wouldn't the whole building go up?
That's true. And that's kind of where I guess my idea comes in, which is like maybe they're just uniquely localized and it's a very rare case. Every other case that it wasn't localized and that the whole house did go down, we just call a fire. And so all these strange cases where they are localized, I guess we just haven't really seen that happen. And so we have to call it something else, or I don't know.
I see what you're getting at. No, and trust, I mean, like, I definitely see what you're getting at. I think the thing there is then it's hot enough to burn the body, right? Because then, God, it just behaves unlike fire.
Yeah. Well, one thing that they mentioned just on that note is, because this will play into the theories a little bit, they were noting that in a lot of these cases, the body was totally cremated, but they started to hypothesize that the melted fat from the bodies would obviously liquefy and then soak into the clothes, the blankets, the chairs, whatever was nearby, and that would be what was fueling the fire. So much like you could soak a little paper ball in rubbing alcohol, and then you could light that on fire. You could hold that in your hands, and then you could blow it out, and the paper would be essentially untouched because the fire was essentially consuming the rubbing alcohol. And obviously, then you blew it out. Eventually, the paper could be on fire, or the rubbing alcohol could burn off, and then the paper is totally fine. But that's kind of what they're starting to lay the groundwork of. They're thinking, okay, maybe the melted fat from the body localized the fire and kept it feeding on that rather than the environment.
Ooh, okay. Now we're starting to get into something.
Which, again, I would want to say that the fire would leap to something else still, instinctually. But this does kind of make sense to my normal person brain.
But this is what I'm thinking, though. Like, and I have done no research on this whatsoever, but like when you see stuntmen who set themselves on fire, it usually doesn't catch a whole bunch of other things on fire, right? Because it's consuming whatever the chemical is that's lathered onto the body.
Right.
And the clothing, etc. It's
Right.
not just like setting thing, because like you'll see a lot of scenes where like stuntmen will be set on fire and they're touching a whole bunch of things, but they're not setting other things on fire. Oh man. Ooh, interesting.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And then one last note when it comes to this, and this is once again going to lay some of the groundwork for the theories. In 2002, Angie M. Christensen at the University of Tennessee compared healthy and osteoporotic bones in cremation. Essentially, healthy bones and bones of those who were a bit elderly or had osteoporosis, corrosion of, whatever. I'm not a doctor. So when they tested these two types of bones in cremation, they found that the osteoporotic bones displayed more discoloration and a greater degree of fragmentation than the healthy ones did, which is something to note because a lot of these victims that we discussed earlier were in fact elderly, right? So there is a chance that their bones were a bit more brittle, and so they would be more likely to burn and disintegrate in a fire. And then another part of their experiment, which is the second part, they found that when they burned human tissue, that it actually burned quite small. And that they said this is what explains why the fire didn't spread beyond the body, is that, sure, they burned, unfortunately, but because of that, it doesn't, we're all picturing big fires because when things get consumed and engulfed in flame, you just think raging fire, very tall. But they're saying, hey, when we burned human tissue, it actually didn't burn all that big. And so I don't know what this situation would look like, but that's probably why it stayed localized to them. And so combining these two things, we start to get a little bit of the science coming involved and saying, okay, so maybe there's some accidents and maybe there's part of our anatomy that can explain why the fire stays localized, whether it's that kind of candle sort of effect with the fat or if it's the size of the flame. I don't know.
Yeah, because there's different types of flames, and I didn't even think about it. Like, depending on the material that is burning, it could localize the fire.
Mm-hmm. Possibly.
Yeah, it's more believable now. I just didn't even think about that angle. It's just so crazy to me that it'd be a localized fire that essentially just incinerates a human being to just ash.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess if they have brittle bones and man, like it's just like
before it can spread, it consumes its fuel, I guess.
Yeah.
Dang.
I'm buying into this.
This is actually helping me feel a little bit better about this because, like, it's kind of creepy. But then when you start to really apply some science to it, you're like, oh, okay, no. These theories start to make me feel a little bit more comfortable in the predictable, in the known, right?
Man, okay. It's still so baffling to me that they would consume. Burn so. It's just like you gotta have the right mixture of components within a human being.
Right. Well, with that said, that's kind of like the stories, the background of spontaneous human combustion. We've theorized a little bit ourselves, but let's dive more officially into the theories section, talking about a couple of different ways that people have theorized that this has come to be. The first one being chemical effects, because there are many theories that certain chemicals that are present in the body can cause it to spontaneously combust. And that's something that you and I were kind of mulling over a little bit at the beginning,
Right.
Whether it was something that consumed that kind of instigated it or some other phenomenon. But in the case of Matilda Rooney's death, investigators believed that her body spontaneously combusted as a result of high amount of alcohol creating a high amount of heat and gases that eventually then turned into flames. And, once again, this kind of goes back to somebody's vomiting up flames, someone's spitting flames from their mouth. And then somebody else said that the flames started at their stomach. There's a lot to kind of go into this that says, yes, something is happening in the stomach region and internally. And because of that, because so many of these cases originate from the stomach, there was a chemist named Dr. John Emsley that proposed that an overproduction of diphosphane could cause hydrogen and methane gases to combust. So here we have it. Now we have someone who actually knows what's going on in the body,
Right.
saying, okay, a certain chemical could be in play, that if these other two chemicals also happen to be in play at the same time, and a rare instance occurs, boom, combustion is possible.
Yeah, I totally believe that.
Yeah.
I can see that happening. It's just the weird thing. Like, okay, like I feel like how it could possibly just ignite makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Now, very late into this episode, how it could only consume just a human being and not anything else really. Kind of starting to see that picture. Oh man.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
But another theory, and this one's a little interesting, comes from Brian J. Ford. It's centered around the idea of ketosis. You might recognize that term, but ketosis is essentially a bodily response to low-carb diets or sometimes alcoholism. So basically, the keto diet causes ketosis. I'll keep it as simple as that. Ketosis creates extra acetone in the body. This is the main chemical found in nail polish, and it's highly flammable. The night Mary Reeser passed away, she actually skipped dinner, so she could have been in a state of ketosis. Now, with all of that said, you and I very well know a person in our lives that is very much into the keto diet. And I know the keto diet is very trendy right now, and a lot of people are having great success with it. You would imagine that in a world where keto is at the forefront, right, more prominent now than probably ever, that cases, if this was the originating factor, that cases would rise. Exactly. I don't know if that's going to happen, but if our old pals out there, kill the diet. I don't want you burning.
Stop what you're doing.
But that's interesting, though. That really is interesting. And I this is where I really dig it, right? I like the eerie, but I just as equally love science trying to get in there and figure it out. Like, oh, maybe it was the oxidation of phosphine, diphosphine, and methane, which is a chemical reaction known as will-o'-the-wisps. And that's another theory that people have, that this is the same chemical reaction that's happening in the body that's creating these flames.
Look, I mean, that's what I want for a lot of these episodes. It's like, scientists, get in there. You know what I mean? Break this down.
Right. Theorize this to pieces.
We got a handful of that. This isn't as... When we first went into this, I was like, oh, damn, is that a real thing? I just hear about that in the movies to like, oh, come on, how is it? And now I'm kind of towards the tail end going, I can see.
You can see it happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's wild.
What a roller coaster.
Now, some of these paranormal authors are not helping the case. I'll be real. So we have Lewis Proud, for example, who is an author, theorized that spontaneous human combustion could originate from the malfunction of electricity in the body. And that's where I say, okay, calm down. I don't know. Listen, there's definitely things happening in the brain that could be likened to electricity, some firing of neurons and whatnot. But we're not robots. Let's not apply like the most basic understanding of electricity to the body and be like, oh, I had a short circuit in my brain, I'm a fire. It's just, I don't know. Maybe I'll be like like one of those people that the future looks back on and goes, wow, the past was dumb. They had no idea.
Yeah.
There's absolutely electricity in the body and everyone's flying around like Electro, shooting electricity from their hands, charging their phones while they're texting. That'd be cool. You know, Shazam!
I mean, there's gotta be something like hundreds, thousands of years from now. It's like, man, they just really got it wrong. They just really got it wrong. And if they just adjusted this to that, boom, open up a space travel, whole new world, something crazy, something wild.
But to close off this idea that it's chemical reaction, a lot of people are opponents to this idea because the body is 70% water on average, and that would create an environment that is very unlikely to start a fire. And that's where I then say, yes, but that's why we're talking about chemicals. Like, once again, we go back to thermite, right? Where you don't need oxygen, and if those kind of chemical reactions can happen within water. So, I don't know. It's interesting. I think it gets very close to attempting to explain something that we clearly know very little about. And that way, it does kind of make it a little less eerie.
Yeah. It didn't step too far into the eerie for me. I do like, though, how I was very much afraid that, not that it was going to step into the eerie, but that it was going to step into the, like, oh, this person said they saw it, or that person said they saw this. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It wouldn't really get broken down, especially like scientifically, which was pretty cool. But, oh, man, I could start to really see this.
Yeah. My gut kind of like, when first thinking about this, and I guess what makes it so creepy to me is as a kid, I'm like, what? I don't want to turn into fire suddenly. But I know better now. I know that I'm not an old lady with with a drinking habit. Chemical effects, really, like, that's what my gut was kind of going for. But the more we talked about this, and the more we started hearing about, John F. Fisher, Joe Nickel, Angie M. Christensen, these other experts in the field, the more I started, we started talking about this other idea, which is the next theory. And it's in fact the leading theory of this phenomenon, and that's known as the wick effect. That these fires and deaths are the result of this effect wherein the body is consumed by fire and the victim's clothes and surroundings, right, if you're on the couch, act as the wick of the candle.
Interesting.
Yes, that the fire is actually caused by an unknown source, something like a candle or a cigarette or ash or something of that nature, something mundane and explainable, but that your body then, whether it's the melting of your fat or that your clothes or whatever, basically that you are an inside out candle. And a candle works in the sense that there's a wick that if you burn the wick by itself, it would basically burn down relatively quickly like a shoestring and then just be gone. What makes it last so long is that it's pulling up liquefied melted wax through the wick, burning the wax, and that's the major part of the flame is wax burning. And then the wick slowly burns therein. Mm-hmm. But basically, that's what they're kind of hypothesizing here.
That's an interesting theory.
Right. The only challenge here is that, again, all the evidence is consumed by the fire. So it makes it very hard for investigators to pinpoint this as what's actually going on, unless you start going out and burning, humanely sourced pig bodies, or cadavers that volunteer for science or whatever. There's no real way unless you start putting tissues through this. And that's if you really wanted to figure this out.
I mean, I'd say throw a couple of cadavers at it.
You volunteering?
When
you're old and gray and you passed on from choking on a Cheerio at the tender age of 112.
I mean, oh God, I hope I'm not 112. That just sounds painful.
111. And
right,
that's good. Yeah, I think this one sounds very interesting. So basically what's happening is the body's melting fat acts as the fire's continuous source to keep the flame going, and the clothes keep the flame contained to the body as the flame basically sits on your clothes, like the wick holds the flame. Your body is the wax of the candle, and it holds it there against you as your body continues to smolder. And obviously at scale, that's your whole body, and maybe it goes up quickly because it's both feeding on your body while also burning your body, which is morbid.
Yeah, sounds gruesome.
Yeah. Oh, and then they're saying because the feet and the lower legs have so much less fat content than the rest of the body, that the fire simply runs out of fuel and stops. And in this case, I also do want to say, the woman whose foot I saw when I searched the case, she might have been sitting on her right foot. I do that all the time, and maybe that's why there was no right foot. But the left foot, it's not that there was clothes there, right? Maybe she was wearing a robe or some shorts or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I'm feeling my lower ankle right now, and it's bony as heck. But that's just me. But truly, that is definitely a more bony kind of area of the body, and so that makes sense.
That was a passing thought I had in the beginning of the episode. Was like, is it that the ankles don't burn because there's, I don't know, less something there or something like that?
It's definitely mostly bone. This guy right here, squeezing my own ankle. Not much to burn there, truly. It would basically be like when the candle gets at the bottom, and that's literally what's happening. When you have, there's wax there, but there's not enough. And so you're like, dang it, this candle smelled really good. This is a bad analogy. Let's move on. Yeah, that's really interesting. And so basically what they're saying is that, yes, there's just a normal source of the fire, and that a unique set of circumstances went into place to keep it localized, whether it be body composition or being inebriated in a way that you couldn't move around very much or reflect. Because that's another thing, right? The one woman we were talking about, Mary, she was taking barbiturates, and she had planned to take 2 more. And so she could have very much been out of it, right? Okay. Oh man, I didn't even process that till right now. Dang, okay. Ooh.
This is starting to actually make sense, oddly enough.
Oddly enough? I'm like holding my cheeks going like, oh my God, did we figure it out?
I can't quite fit all of it together. But I'm like, I feel like I have a bunch of pieces that make sense. Like they're a part of a set. I just don't know how the set comes together.
Right. I've seen the light, but I don't know how to get there. What's another interesting fact is right here, in 1998, there was an episode of QED. Dr. Dougal Drysdale illustrated this very same wick effect using animal fat wrapped in cotton. The fire burns very slowly and upwards, as you could imagine. But that was basically demonstrating why everything surrounding the body wasn't damaged, that it all went upward and that it was all localized because of that cotton. What's interesting is that there's a greasy residue that's caused by the burning body fat. And so if this greasy residue is common at these sites that people are, spontaneously combusting, that could go to add to this theory, right? That is the result of burnt body fat.
Right.
Wow, that's interesting.
It makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
This is making sense to me. Oddly enough, I'm like more and more. I don't feel like I'm crazy, but I'm like, it kind of makes sense.
Right. But I guess, when just looking at the study more, just reading a little bit more about it, it's saying here that the only thing counter to this wick effect, the only thing counter to this theory here is that the body, or the stand-in for the body here, wasn't totally cremated, and that the heat reached around 1.4 thousand to 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, somewhere in that range. Now, one thing that is worth mentioning when it comes to this experiment, though, because it is fascinating and it does demonstrate this phenomenon very well. It doesn't, however, I don't think, demonstrate how the body could be totally cremated, because to do that you need quite the temperature, and studies show anywhere between 1,400 and 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Celsius, I'm sorry, you're on your own. But the fat in this QED experiment did not burn to complete ash like one would suspect if it were a spontaneous combustion case. So, there is a little bit in this, some variables in play that don't necessarily align with what we're witnessing here.
Yeah, I think the hard thing is just like, it burns so hot that it burns the body to add. Like, that's so over the top.
Yeah. You know what I'm thinking? And I know it says here too, in our theories section that, yes, it could be the alcohol or the medication or the age all combined that kind of prevent the victim from moving too much. But when you really think about it, and this is common with stuntmen, when they are doing fire, especially when they're lighting themselves on fire, they have to hold their breath or in some way look after themselves because the fire will pull the oxygen from your lungs. It can really suck that out of you as it's consuming more oxygen than you are able to safely breathe. It's consuming all the oxygen around you.
Oh, that's crazy.
And so there is a possibility here that the reason why people fully cremate, and I'm just kind of spitballing.
Right.
They fully cremate because maybe they succumb. Not only do they not move because of barbiturates or medication or alcohol, or their age, but rather they incapacitate. They're knocked out, right? They pass out because of the lack of oxygen, or the smoke inhalation or whatever. And so they're actually unconscious. And then the fire just kind of finishes the job, unfortunately. Wow. That actually really all combines to make a lot of sense to me. Wow.
Dude, I could see yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
This is oddly enough making a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I don't know how it all pieces together though, and there's some parts that are very wild, but I don't know, man.
Yeah. So those two theories I think are very strong. They actually give me a lot of comfort in a weird way of figuring out this phenomenon. And I feel like coming out of these two theories in particular that I know way more about what's actually going on here than I did otherwise. But as always, I would be remiss if I didn't address some of the other more fantastic theories that are out there. Theories, whether they were at the time historic theories or theories that maintain to this day that are actually kind of interesting in their own ways. But let's dive in. Obviously, some of the smaller theories include that this is murder, that these are cases of murder that are very unique and confined to these locations that have very strange results, obviously with the burning and whatnot, but many people think that these are just straight up cases of murder.
The thing about that is that the big time jumps in so many different, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's so precise and consistent throughout every case to sit here and say, well, this person knows how to do it, and then that person also knows how to do it hundreds of years later. And there's, we only talked about a handful of cases here, but there's about 200 some cases or whatever, and
right,
none of them, like nobody slipped up somewhere.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's true.
That's what and I'm actually happy that in my mind I'm ruling that out, and I could feel like I could comfortably rule that out.
Yeah. Especially, like we said before, especially when somebody who was staying over the night, the person who would be the suspect of murder, also passed away 2 weeks later. And I don't think that they were trying to say, this'll clear my name, and then they also pass away. I don't know.
Yeah.
But again, that's just a cursory glance. But another one that kind of goes weirdly hand in hand with this is divine intervention. That is, that a god or some other higher being stepped in some way. And this was very popular in the time of these happening, right? The historical ones. Newspapers like to publish that this was what was going on because, the further back in time you go, the more religious people tend to be. And so people are saying you're being judged. Right. You're living a life of debauchery filled with drinking, self-pleasure, whatever it might be. Or maybe because these people are living alone, people start spreading stories about them. I don't know. But that was one of the popular theories at the time as well. One interesting one that I hadn't even properly thought about was that this is poltergeist activity. Now, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but when you think about what a poltergeist is, the paranormal investigators explain poltergeists as the physical manifestation of your outward emotions, right? That whatever it is, the entity, the ghost, or whatever, it's manifesting because of your outward emotions, and that this is the opposite of poltergeist behavior, in that something is manifesting internally because of what's going on with your emotions or what's going on in your life. And so that is to say that your thoughts can absolutely impact your surroundings as well as your internal. And maybe this is maybe an ability that people might have. I don't know, but it is an interesting theory. I'm not necessarily subscribing to it, but it's a way of describing this that I hadn't thought about.
I agree with you completely. It's a very interesting take on it. This is definitely in that category of okay, here are the very crazy over the top,
right?
Theories of said episode.
Right. This is where you start to go, that is technically an explanation.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah. You weave together a story,
right,
in your head that you can believe.
Right.
I see why you would believe it. It's a little out there for me though.
And I think, you know, like there's some other explanations here that are more modern, right? That are inspired by the Matrix, for example, and that some people kind of take this as a glitch in the Matrix, that we are living in a simulation and that our consciousness is simulating this life in some way, and that there's a bug. That's all that it is, that there's truly a glitch in this simulation, and that causes us, whether we're a program or whatever, to combust, to be erased in some way.
All right. I mean, I would say that person probably has like a leather duster as well.
Oh, they have the clip-on sunglasses that clip to the bridge of your nose. Yeah. You know, they got that mall ninja stuff. And they also probably explain everything with this same theory. This is one of those catch-alls. You're like, we're in the Matrix.
Yeah.
That explains everything.
Yeah, that's always the excuse. It's the Matrix. It's the Matrix doing this, it's doing that.
Something a little bit more fascinating that I actually kind of really find interesting is ball lightning. Ball lightning is another unproven phenomenon wherein small, sometimes even pea-sized balls of lightning that last longer than a typical lightning strike are flying around, floating around, and can interact with people by way of lighting them on fire or creating microwaves inside their bodies that energize, much like an actual microwave would, energize your cells inside of you and create combustion in some way. Now, ball lightning is certainly an interesting phenomenon. I don't know if I would apply it here, but it's definitely something I think we should look at down the road.
Ball lightning.
I don't know much about it, but it's basically lightning in an orb. And it's like, instead of lightning going from one point to another point, cloud to sky, back and forth, the dissipation of energy, it's instead trapped for some unknown reasons, because it's all unproven, that the lightning gets trapped into a ball of some sort, lasts a little bit longer than a normal strike, which is instant, and then fizzles out. I don't know. I really don't know much about it.
That's a weird one.
And the last one it's very strange. And the last one I wanted to touch on was by an author named Larry E. Arnold. They theorized, okay, it's going to sound very smart until it doesn't. They theorized that there was a new subatomic particle existing in the body fat of humans called pyrotrons. And that simply, when a person is stressed and drinking alcohol, they are likely to combust. And there you have it. The explanation that is not an explanation. Basically saying, well, it happens.
I mean, there would be so many other cases.
Yeah. Find me that pyrotron and we'll talk.
So many other cases.
Yeah, oh yeah. I would have burst into flames in high school. Talking about stress. Okay, not drinking. I was straight edge. But no, talking about stress though, absolutely. My pyrotrons would have been all over the place. But that's interesting. I wanted to address it. It is out there. But there are a lot of very interesting, more out there theories. But in wrapping up, Fredo, how do you feel on these theories? Let's go back to our old scale, 1 to 10. I don't know if we did 0 to 10 or whatever, but 1 to 10, 1 being you don't believe it, not even for a second. 10, you're fully convinced. How are you feeling on any of these theories? And which one do you kind of lean on a little bit?
I mean, look, I'll throw down a. Oh God, so my gut was gonna tell me a 6 because originally I was like, it's like a 2. Come on, you're telling me like, and then this is the whole like, is spontaneous combustion within a human body a thing? I'd be like, nah, it's a 2. My gut tells me to give it, I've been telling you the way I feel throughout this whole entire episode.
Right.
I lean a little bit more towards it, so I can give it like a 6. But just the fact that like it does happen, this isn't like us listening to someone saying I saw this happen. It's
right,
like,
exactly.
People have died. There is actual
fires
evidence.
are happening, man.
I gotta lean towards like a 7 on it. I give it a little bit more.
Dang. Okay. Here's the thing. I just went instant gut check. I really like the chemical theory. I think that's where my old engineer brain wanted to go.
The chemical theory, if anything.
Absolutely. That's if you're subscribing to something happening inside, a chemical reaction or whatever, that spontaneous combustion exists. Now, I personally go with the Wick effect, and I give it a strong 9 because therein it basically says that it isn't spontaneous combustion, that there's actually an explanatory, there is a source of flame somewhere, and that for whatever reason, that's either not told, it's not noticed, it's not seen, that's starting the flame, and then the Wick effect takes over. That's kind of where I'm at, and that spontaneous combustion isn't in play. that we're not just like lighting up internally on fire by accident.
Right.
So I'm giving that wick effect, like I'm feeling like that's really strong. I wanted to say 9, but that's close to saying like that is it. But I'm up there. As far as the chemical thing, if assuming spontaneous combustion was a phenomenon that existed because something happened internally and we just lit on fire, then I'd be like, all right, it's chemical effects for sure.
Right.
But just as an idea coming into all this, I was like, spontaneous combustion, I think it's just something that is unique, rare, and unexplained because of it. I don't think that necessarily it is something that happens, but it's very fascinating. I remember hearing about it when I was younger, but kind of haven't heard about it since. It's interesting.
Yeah. It was just really funny because, like I said, I never go into these episodes really knowing what we're going to get into. And when you were like, all right, we're going to talk about spontaneous combustion, my mind
like, what?
combusted. I was like, what? How you talking about that fake thing in the movies?
And then we're going to talk about the Matrix.
This is a fun one. Yeah.
Yeah. This was really interesting. I'm really fascinated.
I like that you're throwing a bunch of just different things my way.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna keep you on your toes.
Like every week, I'm not, you know what I mean? I don't sit here and go, it's gonna be, an internet case or a murder or XYZ. It's so all over the place, but in like in a good way, because there's, I don't know, it keeps it fresh for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as much as I say we, Christian and I, like we really started all of this off with internet mysteries because I feel like that is a realm that is just deeply unexplored. Right. And I really like that kind of, as it were, new frontier of mysteries. And there's still a lot to dive into, but the internet's not as old as time itself. And so there's only so much to cover. There's only so many things that have enough meat on the bone to deliver here in the podcast. That's why we kind of do some compilation episodes that are some smaller ones that are still really fascinating. But I mean, I just really like mysteries in general. And I really enjoy that you guys in the audience have really been resonating with all the different types of topics we've covered, because it's just fascinating, Fredo, you and I, to sit down and hash out some of these things that have, like, I think we have to do Bermuda Triangle at one point, because that's probably probably my gateway mystery.
Yeah, I feel like for a lot of people, that's where it started off.
Yeah, I remember in 3rd grade, I distinctly remember this. It was 3rd grade. They were showing us the 2000 election stuff on, I don't know why. I don't know if the teachers were just interested or if they were trying to educate us about the whatever. But I remember being distracted and talking to my friend. I was like, listen, when I get older, I'm going to sail into the Bermuda Triangle. Whatever happens, I'm going to see that thing. Whatever happens to me, if I get struck by this ethereal being who sucks me out of the world. I don't know. I was like, I just want to see. I want to see what the answer is, whether I make it out the other side or not. And that's another just teaser of where I'm going to take you. Maybe someday in the future, it's just going to send you out into the world, conquering these mysteries, just mano a mano, hand on hand. We're just going out there, physically tackling these mysteries.
Yeah, well, no. You keep trying to drive it home, and I'm getting further and further away from you. As
we are on the same page. I can feel it. We are both excited.
Be further.
Yeah, we're so far from home. We're out there where the mysteries are. I can feel it now. Yeah, History Channel. We're your guys.
I hate
just
this.
2 boys and a couple of mysteries. That's the name of the show.
You got 1 guy.
Got 2 guys, 2 confident boys. All right. Well, Fredo, thank you again for your lovely thoughts here on another mystery.
It always is.
Yeah. Everybody else, thank you so much for continuing to share the podcast. Word of mouth, always important. For leaving us those reviews on Apple, for hitting us up on roosterteeth.com, where you can comment on the episode that's uploaded there, and all that. Oh yeah, and we've got the merch out now, don't we? So yeah, if you want to support us directly, you can go to store.roosterteeth.com. But anyway, with all that out of the way, thank you guys again, and we'll see you all next week for another mystery. Are you a fan of video games, social deception, and reality shows? Introducing Survive Block Island, a reality competition show set in the world of Minecraft. I'm Trevor Collins, and I'll be hosting 12 of the greatest minds in video game entertainment as they compete in perilous challenges designed to test their skills and friendships. and maybe their internet connections.
Competitors will face challenges and eliminations. Winners will be granted safety, while weaker links will be voted off one by one. Ultimately, only one person will survive Block Island. Watch Survive Block Island, available now by going to bit.ly/surviveblockisland.
This is a Rooster Teeth production.
On June 6th of 1992, two freshly graduated high school students disappeared without a trace. Authorities immediately began searching for Stacy McCall and Suzanne Streeter, along with Suzanne's mother, Cheryl, but they were never found. Today, we analyze the puzzling case of the Springfield Three. This is Red Web. Welcome back to Red Web, another Mystery Monday for you all. I'm Trevor Collins, and with me, potentially with the gut check, as always, Alfredo Diaz.
Ooh, I mean, I just don't know what to say.
Yeah, no, it's pretty cut and dry. Got a disappearing
Seems
act.
Pretty straightforward. I'm very interested to see what mystery is wrapped around this disappearance.
Mm-hmm.
Three, right? Two high school kids and then the mother?
Yes. So we have
Interesting.
a lot of names here and alliterative. So there's a lot of S names. So I'm going to go ahead and outline this real quick just for clarity down the way. But we have Suzanne Streeter, aka Susie. We have Stacy McCall, who is Susie's friend, and we have Cheryl Levitt, who is Susie's mother. Just so we don't get confused later on, but that's who we're working with. Yeah.
That's a lot of S's.
But yeah, so we're going to break down kind of what the story entails with this disappearance and the investigation thereafter. And then we have a couple of theories that we want to tap into, but the key information is going to be in the suspects, as you can imagine with a case like this.
Right.
And we'll kind of dive into those and give our opinions of what we think along the way, as well as what the police thought.
I'd be very interested to see how the mother went missing as well, along with if there's any type of I don't know, maybe blame or suspicion on the mother.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, it's strange, like I do position it in the way that the case kind of unfolds, where you have the two students, they're doing something, but then also the mother is kind of tucked in there too. So without any kind of further delay, let's dive into the disappearance and everything we know about that evening. So on June 6th of 1992, we have Stacy McCall and Suzanne Streeter. They both graduated from Kickapoo High School. Now, Suzanne spent the early part of that evening having dinner at home with her mother, Cheryl Levitt. Now, again, we have these three. We have Suzanne, Stacy, and Cheryl. Now, Susie and Stacy then planned to spend the night in a hotel in Branson, Missouri. However, they decided last minute to stay with their friend, Janelle Kirby, instead. Now, Janelle's home was in Battlefield, Missouri, which is a suburb of Springfield, and it's about a 45-minute drive from Branson, their original destination. So they're essentially going to celebrate their graduation, as you might do with friends,
Right.
staying up late, doing the whatevers. Now, in order to tell the mom, Susie calls her mom at approximately 10:30 to discuss this change of plans. The only other fact we know about these folks is later that night, still, Cheryl, the mother, telephoned her friend around 11:15 p.m. just to chat, I suppose. And at the time, she was painting a chest of drawers and gave no indication that anything was amiss inside, outside her residence, or just in general. It seemed like everything was fine, according to the friend.
Okay.
So now we flash forward a few hours still, and it's about 2:15 a.m. now on June 7th. Susie and Stacy returned to Cheryl's residence around that time after they decided that their friend's home was too crowded. So we have a lot of changing plans and plans changing last minute multiple times.
Stuff is moving around everywhere. It's a damn mess. Make up your mind.
It's a mess. And these are all
up your
secondhand
damn
accounts.
mind.
Yeah, right. You got to figure out where you're celebrating. But so to recap just briefly, they wanted to stay in a hotel 45 minutes outside of town. And then they said, you know what? We're going to change our plans. Our friend is having a get together or a sleepover of some sort. Let's
Right.
go over there. That makes way more sense. And then later on that night, they're like, wow, there are too many people here. we need to get some sleep. Let's just go back to my place, says Susie. My mom's there. We can kick it. It'll be fine. So they go back home, 2:15 a.m. That's when they arrive. Now, the way this disappearance was discovered is that later on that same day, June 7th, they had planned to meet with other friends at Whitewater Amusement Park in Branson. So again, they got home at 2:15. They're going to sleep sometime later that day, going to go to the water park. Now, in the early morning of June 7th, Susie and Stacy did not arrive at Janelle's residence as planned, right? This is the friend that they were going to go to the amusement park with. And so Janelle says, hey, you know what? You're probably still sleeping in. We'll come to you. We'll pick you up. We'll take you. So Janelle and her boyfriend hop in the car. They drive their way over and decide to pick up Susie and Stacy. Now, on the way to their house, Janelle tried to call them, as you might do. Again, no one was answering, and all of the calls went to voicemail. So they finally arrive at the house around 8 a.m. in the morning. So 6 hours after the girls were supposed to have gotten home. In the driveway were 3 vehicles, as you might imagine, because there are 3 people at the house, right? You have Susie and Stacy.
Susie and Stacy.
One car each.
The high school kids. Okay.
And then obviously Susie's mom, who owns the home, her car was there as well. So those are the 3 cars we have.
Okay.
Now, what was interesting, again, in addition to these phone calls not being answered, all the cars being in the driveway, they go up to the door and they knock on the door and they notice that the glass lamp on the porch was broken and that no one was answering the door. So when they went to open it, it was unlocked. So they let themselves in, figuring something's going on. What's going on? When they entered the home, they saw the 3 purses from each of the women lined up in the living room on the floor. Inside the purses are the things that you might expect, right? The police found wallets, IDs, car keys, and money. It also turns out that the family dog named Cinnamon had been locked in the bathroom and appeared to be very anxious. Clearly, the dog knows something was afoot. Something was wrong, whether it was an unfamiliar face or the dog was punished in some way. You're a new dog owner, so you would imagine.
Or really had to go. You know what I'm saying?
I
know that.
I know that face.
Yeah, I know what that means. All right. Someone's got to go potty.
Right. Trapped in the bathroom, doesn't know how to use a toilet. So now, to recap the 3S names here, Cheryl, Susie, and Stacy were nowhere to be seen inside or outside of this home. This is the point in time where the friends are like, okay, definitely something's wrong. My friends and their mother are missing. Now, while they were at the scene, the phone rang. Janelle goes to answer the phone, and on the other end is a strange male voice that starts making sexual innuendos. She promptly ended the call and hung up, only for the phone to ring yet again.
Weird.
Yeah, she answers again. It's the same male voice. Boom, hang up. This is creepy.
So this was in 92?
Yes.
My gut tells me, damn, bold, because, I don't know, I feel like in 92, people like the FBI or something like that can track that number at that point. I think the technology is there,
There's like wiretaps and like cell phone towers. I mean, it's rudimentary, but it's almost as sophisticated as it is today. It's just not as clean and digital, right? But absolutely, they could reverse search, or you could do, what is it, star 69 or whatever?
Yeah. Oh God. Yep. Yeah.
And there you go. But also, I'm glad you brought that up because the year, I don't know if we are at caller ID yet. At least the rich people might have had caller ID at this point in time. I certainly didn't have it in the 90s, but there's caller ID, there's voicemail, there's like, just to lay the groundwork of what the phone systems were like for those who might not have been around at that time. So you didn't really know who was calling, but you had literal physical tapes that recorded messages and stuff, sometimes digital, whatever. So that's what we're working with, and that will come back to haunt us. So she obviously gets that second call. It's creepy. It's the same guy. She hangs up. Boom. Now, during that time, when she was in the house looking around, getting those calls, Janelle's boyfriend was outside sweeping up the mess from the broken porch light, as one might do. Just, hey, there's some broken glass on the ground. Let me just clean this up. After all this went down, they left. And that was that. Now, several hours after this, you have Stacy's mother, the friend. Her mother, Janice, is saying, okay, something's going on. I can't get in contact with my daughter. And she's getting increasingly worried. So she goes over to the house herself. She also looks around the house and she recognized her daughter's clothes that were neatly folded on her sandals next to Susie's waterbed. She also noticed that Cheryl and Susie, both of which who were chain smokers, by the way, had left their cigarettes at the house. So we have a couple of red flags. We have their purses, their cars,
Right.
and cigarettes and clothes all left behind. But no daughter, no contact, nothing. Red flags everywhere.
Okay. That their purses were also left behind, you said?
Mm-hmm. And they were lined up too, like on the floor in the living room.
Okay, so someone's sick.
That or someone calculated, you know?
Yeah. This seems so, I guess kind of thought out and planned, right? Like you don't really.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'm assuming if the wallets and whatnot were there, then I guess they weren't in it for money.
Exactly. And the cars weren't taken. There was money in the purses. And you also have to think about the surrounding situation, right? The girls had just graduated, like then and there, like that day, or I guess the day before. And they also had plans to be 45 minutes away out of town. And they were going to stay at that hotel, by the way, because the water park was nearby, yada, yada. So the mom was planned to be there alone. And so you have to wonder, was whatever went down here relevant to the mom being there or relevant to the daughter's graduation in some way or what? But we'll dive into a little bit of that later on. But coming back to Janice, obviously she's at the house and she is increasingly worried. She noticed a lot of red flags, and so she calls the police in a panic. I don't know why her friends didn't call the police. Maybe they were just too busy and didn't want to be held up from going to the water park. I don't know. Priorities out the wazoo, but way off in left field.
That's the weird thing. Like, why wouldn't you call any? I'm like, what?
Right.
Like, what are you doing there?
Get the police on the horn, man. Just get them in, get them over there. You're tap dancing all around this crime scene.
I mean, I guess it's like high school kids, right? I mean, you're not really thinking. You got different priorities, I'm assuming.
High schoolers out there, listen up. Something goes down like this.
Please.
Water park can wait.
Yeah.
Water park can wait.
The mall, the water park, whatever it is.
Please.
That is insane that, like, especially because
Orange Julius is going to be there tomorrow.
it looked like, right, the place was broken into.
Is that still relevant? Is that a modern juice place now? I don't.
What
anyway.
is Orange Julius?
Juice
Is it like
Land
a
will be there
Juice
tomorrow.
Land? Okay, Juice Land makes sense to me. I was like, Orange Julius, what is this? What is this?
I'm gonna Google it. Okay, no, it's out there. It's
It exists. It's still
Okay.
a thing. So they pulled up and
Mm-hmm.
the house looked, I don't know, from my POV, obviously broken into.
Well, hold on. All we have is a broken light outside, and you would have to
Okay.
imagine freshly
Just,
broken because the glass is on the ground. And the door was unlocked. But that's it. That's all you got. Got the cars outside. You're like, okay, they're definitely home. You walk in, the purses are on the ground. No one's home. What the heck? Dog's in the bathroom by itself. It's weird. It's a weird situation to be in.
Yeah, that's so weird.
You go, maybe they went on a walk and they didn't want the dog running through the home. I don't know.
I don't. Here's the thing.
Go for it.
One, it's just weird in general, right?
Sure.
That-
Yeah.
I don't know. The whole situation, as many of these things are, it's a tough, weird situation. That being said, all right. Here's the thing. Maybe the glass was broken already.
Mhm.
To me, it's just so weird to just be like, whoever kidnapped all of them. If this was a kidnapping, was just like, I'll break this glass on my way out.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that was broken on the way out or something.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple of theories that try to address it, and it will make more sense later. When I was going through this research, I certainly was like, well, that's such an odd thing.
Right? Odd piece of detail in my mind.
Yeah. But I think it'll click strongly once we start talking about some other things later on.
Okay.
But one last piece to the story here of the disappearance is going back to Janice, right? She calls the police and then she hangs up. She's obviously right by the phone because these aren't wireless yet. So when she hangs up, she notices the answering machine is blinking. And for those of you, I'm pretending like everyone's 10 who's listening to this, but the light blinking basically just means there's a
message.
a message on the machine, right?
Yeah.
And because there's no screen that says there's a message, it's just a blinking light. So she plays it, okay? And she later describes the message as strange. Now here's the issue. We've already got a lot of holes in the story, but this is a big one. She couldn't remember anything more about this particular message because the answering machine then automatically erased the message once it was played. I don't know why it would do it after playing it once.
Is that a setting?
It must be a setting. But listen, I can't tell you how many times I have to re-listen to a message because someone kind of fumbled their phone number.
Oh, 100%. That's a common thing. And you got to play a message a couple times just to make sure you get every tidbit.
So all we know now is that there's a mysterious voicemail, and she said it was very strange, and that's all we have. And it feels like a huge hole in this mystery. Now, obviously, this could be anything, but there's speculation that the voicemail was from Janelle, as she was trying to contact the 3 missing women on the way over. Remember, she called the cell phones and she called the house. Now, maybe that's why Janelle didn't notice a message on the machine. Maybe that's why she's like, oh, that's my message, whatever. Or maybe she thought, these are someone else's messages. I'm not going to listen to that. But it's interesting that it didn't come up. So it makes me wonder, is it Janelle getting a call from this person, this man, right, who would making these odd comments, these sexual innuendos, and she's like, she gets the call twice, answers both times, and then they're like, listen, we got to get out of here. She leaves. Maybe the guy calls back, and maybe that's the strange message that was left. I don't know, because there's some hours here unaccounted for.
So like many of these cases, there's always just that little bit of information that slips past everything, and we just will never know.
Right. Well, that's the story of the disappearance. But there's still more to dive into, as you can imagine. We have the investigation, some suspects. So let's dive into that now. So the police were obviously baffled. Nothing apart from the 3 women was missing from the house. You have the purses and everything, like just all sitting right there. There was no signs of forced entry in the home, though some may consider the broken porch light as a sign. There was no like crowbar, broke window, nothing like that.
The whole like porch light. I mean, unless the person that was abducting them was pulling them out and they were kicking high or something like that. Like, it's just a weird piece of detail.
It's a very weird piece of detail for sure. But it's literally the only thing that stands out of these stories. And obviously things could be missed from these firsthand accounts, people not really going to the site with the intent of investigating, right? They're just kind of going, hey, are you here? I'm here to pick you up. You're not here? Okay, bye. So it's really hard to say. And once the police finally got here, and I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here, but once the police finally got here, people had already been on site. So other details that might have been looked over might have been messed with. So it's really hard to know what is a part. I don't know. There's a lot of just tampered, whether with intentionally or accidentally, whatever.
Yeah. People going in and out and
right. And so really the only thing we can really go off of here is this broken light. And like I said, it is strange. But there were a couple of other potentially relevant observations made in the home. And again, these could have happened whenever, but these are things that the police thought were important and noted down. So it was determined that the teens had removed their makeup and laid in bed, which makes sense. They got home at 2 a.m., quick kip, and then go off to the water park in the morning. The television was actually turned on. Now, again, I don't know if this was, because this wasn't in any of these stories from Janice or from the friends that tried to pick her up. Maybe a family member came over and tried to turn on the news and then looked around the house inside and out and just forgot it. I don't know, but the television was turned on. Anyway, Cheryl's bed appeared to have been slept in. Her eyeglasses were on the nightstand next to a turned over book, implying that perhaps she was reading before falling asleep. And the blinds in Susie's room were pulled open, as if someone was looking outside. And I have to imagine they were broken in some way, because metal blinds, you pull them open, they kind of snap back together.
right.
And it's hard to know. You know, these are delicate blinds, and maybe they were broken ahead of time, but these are the only other observations made. Now, in the following 16 hours after this disappearance went down, there were, like I mentioned, a lot of friends and families that had been coming by the house, somewhere between 10 and 20 people in total, possibly all of them tainting the entire crime scene. So there we have it. We don't know if the blinds were messed with by somebody else coming to the house, if it was pre-existing, if somebody else turned on the TV coming over to check on their family being worried. It's hard to say.
I'll be honest, that sounds like worst case scenario for any detective.
Oh yeah.
Like,
You're telling me like upwards of 20 people come trancing through before we are able to get on site? And only Janice is calling us? Come on.
Look, I can believe that 20 people, but like 20 people went, yeah, right? Also that, like 20 people,
Listen, I don't tweet for a week. No one's coming by.
But
I don't know.
like,
I mean, maybe it's just the 90s, man. Maybe it's just
holy
like,
how do you know that many people?
I guess if you had graduation parties lined up, I don't know.
I mean, like if you know that many people, you know that many people. That's not too like
Right.
out there. But I don't know 20 people that would just show up at my house like that.
To be fair, nowadays we'd probably just text, probably
True.
scoot one over and be like, they're good.
92. Oh God, but even then, maybe a couple.
Mm-hmm.
Holy hell.
These are some well-connected folks.
Yeah.
But I guess you have two families, right? You have the mom and you have Cheryl and Susie, and then you have Susie's friends, and then you have Stacy. You have Stacy's family and Stacy's friends. So I can see it. I can see it.
So wait, hold on, the friend's mom, did she come? Oh God, did they come over as well?
Yeah, that was Janice. That was
Right,
the
that's
one
Janice,
who
okay.
called the police. Yes.
Okay.
A lot of names, I know. But yeah, a lot of people coming by the house. Now, the answering machine and the subsequent message had been lost. Not the machine itself, but rather the message. And the broken glass from the porch lamp had been swept up and thrown into the trash. Obviously, the boyfriend was cleaning that up. And this, again, was the single possible sign of forced entry. And during the interviews, now the police are coming out, they're interviewing neighbors and friends and everything. A couple neighbors said that there was a dirty white van that had been cruising up and down the streets of this neighborhood in the weeks prior to the disappearance.
Oh, no, that's never good.
Never good. Okay, let's just go ahead and put this law out there. Unless you got 5 kids, you probably just don't need to own a van.
Yeah,
Okay.
what'd you need that much space for?
Or maybe it's a work van. You plaster your brand on the side like Stacy's Plumbing. I don't know, but yeah, nothing good comes from a van.
No, not at all. Jeez. Oh God. I mean, if you need the space, get a truck.
Right. But in addition to this dirty white van that has been seen around the neighborhood in the weeks prior, another neighbor actually said that they saw a brown, older model Dodge van near the home in the early morning hours of June 7th. Now, in addition to this, a witness reported observing a woman matching Susie's description driving an older model moss green Dodge van later during the day on June 7th. So when everything went down, we have somebody who looks like Susie driving a slightly different, but still dirty old Dodge van. Not a white Dodge van, but a green one. This witness claims that the woman appeared terrified as an unseen male voice told her, "Don't do anything stupid." The witness did not contact investigators with her account until several days had passed. What is up with the people in the early 90s and not calling the police? Come on.
Who? Call the police.
Call the police, especially if you hear a movie line like, "Don't do anything stupid." Come on.
Oh,
You see someone that
man.
looks scared and you hear that line from an unseen male voice. Come on. Especially when there's active investigations.
Yeah, that's a easy police call. Yeah, at this point, how long was the investigation active for?
I'm not exactly sure, but they said it wasn't until days later that they reached out to the investigators. But
Oh.
they had seen this on June 7th. So perhaps they didn't know that there was an investigation just yet.
Okay.
Because this would have been probably in the heat of the moment, right?
Right.
So maybe these people are like, you know what? I don't want to step in anyone's business. But I mean, you're nosy enough to be looking out your window at 8 a.m. Because here's the thing. Additional witnesses reported seeing the Dodge van, I don't know if it's white or green at this point, in different areas around Springfield after the woman's disappearances. So now they're kind of like, we have witnesses all over the city seeing this van. And now a man also told the authorities that he saw a blonde female sitting at the driver's seat of a similar van or vehicle in a parking lot of a local grocery store. This individual said that they wrote down the van's license plate number on a newspaper. So you're like, boom, ka-ching, we got this. Well,
Yep. Case solved.
why did he do it? He said the vehicle seems suspicious. Excellent.
There you
Excellent.
go. Someone's thinking with their head.
Yep, we got this evidence. So the man, as you can imagine, promptly threw that paper in the trash before contacting the investigators.
Wait, what?
Yep, paper's in the trash.
Wait,
we don't
what?
have it anymore.
Wait, what? Wait, what?
Yep.
All right. What a twist.
What a twist. You know,
What a twist.
if you're going to take the time to say that vehicle looks suspicious and write down the plate number,
What in the
just
hell?
kind of keep a hold of it, you know? You just don't know when that might turn around. Just keep it on the counter for a day.
That's wild. That is wild.
So he lost that. Law enforcement officials actually agreed to hypnotize him in order to try to see if he could hypnotically remember what the numbers were. Now, he was only able to provide the first 3 digits. Now, that doesn't really help whittle things down because that gives you tens of thousands of options for the other 3+ digits.
Yeah.
Could be anything. So, and also those 3 first digits don't even have to be accurate. He could have just made them up. So yeah, again, we have a lost potential lead. Now, back to the sightings in the area, because as I had mentioned earlier, there were a lot of sightings of this van or similar vans around town, like a lot. But other witnesses actually had some more concrete evidence. They had heard or reported hearing a woman's scream and squeals of a tire somewhere in the eastern Greene County area of Missouri during, again, the early morning hours of June 7th. Now, officials did go to this area and they did search to see if they could find these perhaps tire tracks or any evidence of a van nearby, but there was no evidence related to the case that was located in this area. So it's really frustrating to me, we have a lot of mistakes, a lot of holes, a lot of this and that, like
a lot of people going to the damn house.
a lot of people going to this house. You see somebody in the morning hours that matches the description of one of these girls who is looking distraught and being yelled at by some guy who's unseen, at least from the witness's perspective. In this van, you see this van around town. You got the guy who wrote down a license plate of a suspicious vehicle and then threw it away by accident. Like, there's so much frustrating, proximity. You're so close.
Yep.
But much like many of these mysteries, that just kind of the red webs just fall away.
Right. And I mean, like you said, it just seems like there's so many moments that could have blown this case open.
Right.
But damn.
Yeah.
I think the interesting thing so far it's we have all these people that have seen these things and yet we have nothing. I don't think we really had a case that we've had so many people see so much yet know so little.
You are exactly right. That's exactly how I feel. And that's why this is so frustrating because, yes, there does feel like there's a lot of, evidence or anecdotal evidence, right?
Right.
But none of it pans out. None of it goes anywhere. And the frustrating part, too, is that on top of this, and this is where I would love your gut check here, is that while some investigators felt very strongly about this idea of the van, right? Because so many reports came in, right? The suspicious parking job, the fact that we're seeing it all over the place. There's a mysterious van rolling around the neighborhood for weeks. There's a van outside the house in the morning hours. You see someone who matches Susie's description driving a van. Again, ignoring the colors for just a second, this van is popping up everywhere. So these policemen are like, wow, okay, there's something here. But the chief of police said, quote, he was never completely comfortable with that lead. What does that tell you?
What? Why?
That makes me feel like, I'm sorry, the chief of police is in on this. Why is a fantastic question.
Interesting. Yeah, because your thought is is the chief of police in on this? And my thought is, does he think that the neighborhood was in on this?
Right. Do you think the entire city of Springfield is we're going to tell him we saw this van everywhere.
Yeah, both are pretty bold.
It's just interesting. Now, I do have to give 1% of credit back to say it's interesting that we have three, or I should say, as a fellow colorblind person, that we have 2 distinct colors. The green, the dark green, and the brown can get mixed up. I can see that. But we have at least 3 colors being reported. And so that kind of gives a little bit of flexibility in here to say, well, maybe this van is just a red herring and that we just keep seeing vans because we're looking for it. But I don't know, with the eyewitness reports in the neighborhood, with Susie driving and the one outside the house early in the hours, I don't know. I don't know why the chief of police is throwing this away. But interestingly enough, several years later, in the late 90s, several officials actually charged this former chief of police with impeding the investigation of the case, which is nice to hear. Step out the way with your bad ideas.
Damn, just like that, huh?
I guess so. Now, obviously, I distill all of the complexity of whatever happened there and I provide some levity. I don't really know the further details of all of that. But it is interesting that the chief of police is willing to say, I don't know about this van talk, guys. Let's move on. But
Yeah.
that's the end of the investigation. That's frustratingly as much or as little as we know.
Really?
Yeah. Hey, everybody, it's Trevor Collins. As you come to expect me, I'm just interrupting myself as I do. Just giving you guys some housekeeping notes. You know, we have the Task Force merch available at store.roosterteeth.com. Thank you all so much for selling it out so quickly. Thankfully, our e-commerce team is all over it. We're refreshing the pin, the hats, the shirts, and the hoodies and everything, so that way you can stay in the task force. That's right. It isn't a first come, first serve sort of task force. This is for everybody. So get in here, solve some mysteries, and support the show. Thank you all so much for doing so. With all of that said, I want to talk about a couple of sponsors. This episode is sponsored by the Jordan Harbinger Show. Jordan's show, which Apple named one of its best of 2018, is aimed at making you a better informed, more critical thinker so you can get a sense of how the world actually works and come to your own conclusions about what's happening, even inside your own brain. Each episode is a conversation with a different fascinating guest, and when they say there's something for everyone, they really do mean it. In one episode, Jordan talks to a hostage negotiator from the FBI who offers techniques on how to get people to like and trust you, which sounds useful and disturbing all at the same time, especially coming from the Red Web background. I would recommend checking out Jordan's conversations on humankind, A Hopeful History with Rutger Bregman, and the episode entitled The Changing World Order with Ray Dalio. Both very interesting subjects. If you are interested in this podcast, you might find those interesting yourself. But Jordan's always focused on pulling useful, practical insight out of his brilliant guests. These episodes are loaded with bits of wisdom that you can use to legitimately change your mind and improve your life right away. We really enjoy the show, and we think you will as well. There's just so much here. So check out jordanharbinger.com/start for some episode recommendations, or search The Jordan Harbinger Show, that's HARB as in boy, IN as in Nancy, GER, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. This episode of Red Web is also sponsored by Brook Linen. Freshen up for the spring with comfort, with sheets, towels, loungewear, and more from Brook Linen. By working directly with manufacturers, they ensure premium, high-quality comfort every single time, at a fraction of the retail price. That means ridiculously soft bedding, towels, and loungewear. Brook Linen is so confident that you'll love everything, they'll even offer a 365-day warranty. Oh, and they've got 75,000 5-star reviews, just by the way, so it's hard to argue with that. I received my sheets from Brook Linen not too long ago, and they're actually the sheets I use every day now. They're very comfortable and very smooth when I climb in. They make the going to bed experience even better. I know we all like falling asleep, and these are my words. I love falling asleep, but slipping into these Brook Linen sheets is actually quite extraordinary. They're very good sheets, and they're at a very good price compared to normal retail sheets. I really do like them. Get everything you need for a spring refresh during Brook Linen's biggest sale of the year. Shop the Brook Linen birthday sale starting this weekend. And if you're listening to this podcast after the sales event, don't even worry about it, okay? We got you covered. You can still go to brooklinen.com and use promo code REDWEB to get $20 off any purchase of $100 or more. That's BROOKLINEN.com and enter promo code REDWEB to get $20 off any purchase of $100 or more. Brook Linen, everything you need to live your most comfortable life. We have a couple key questions here. So let's dive into the questions and some of the theories, and that might help kind of expand upon what we've got here. So coming back to one of my points I made earlier, it does seem significant that Cheryl was initially intended to be alone that night. Her daughter and her daughter's friend were meant to be elsewhere. But if Cheryl was not the target, then how would perhaps, if Susie was the target, I should say, or Susie's friend, how would that person keep up with them? How would they know to arrive at the house? Because the plans were changing continuously that night. And also, going back to Cheryl for a second, if it was Cheryl that was the intended target, why not abduct her when she was in fact alone? Unless, again, they were waiting for midnight or waiting for them to fall asleep or something. It's really hard to say. And maybe the moment they were going to pounce, Stacy and Susie show up. It's really hard to know, but I think it is significant that she was intended to be alone that night.
So the mom was intended to be alone.
Right.
And you're thinking the abduction was happening probably shortly before 2. And then the daughter and the daughter's friend came home, maybe saw it, and then also got abducted as well because the person doing this had no other choice.
Perhaps.
Hmm.
Now, if this is all getting too confusing, I can just read the question verbatim and we can go from
No,
there.
I mean, that's kind of...
Because I kind of combine these two questions.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense to me because, yeah. Because my initial thought was if the person was waiting to just pick up or abduct the mother, then why force it?
Yeah.
But then that does make sense if they weren't expecting, because they could have just been staking out the house, saw that the one car was there, and then the kids just showed up.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically 3 cases here. It's either that the mother was being targeted because someone knew that they would be alone that night, or the 2 girls were targeted, or that this was just a fluke and they picked a random house and it just happened to be this night, and all of the surrounding story about where people were and their changing plans had nothing to do with anything. I do think there's some significance to the fact that the mother was going to be alone that night, and the fact that the daughters had just graduated and were going to be distracted and off celebrating 45 minutes plus away. It makes me feel like there's something there.
See, if it's targeted like that, just like why?
Why wait?
No, just why
Why?
her?
Oh. I don't know, man. Why do
well,
people do crimes?
Exactly. We'll just never. You never know. Someone just sees another person in passing, and they're not all
Right.
there, and they just go that person.
Could be revenge of some sort. It could be personal in some way.
Yeah, but just usually there's motive.
Trafficking of some nature.
Oh God.
Yeah. Honestly, why do people do crimes? I don't know. There's some terrible people in the world. Is really what it comes down to.
Yeah. I think it's just one of those things too, where it's just like, or at least from what I've heard, just watching news or whatnot, there's usually like a motive to these things.
Absolutely.
Obviously, there are a ton of times where it's just like, just for, wrong place, wrong time. But a good chunk of the time, it's like someone close, or there's a specific motive to it, and it's less random.
Absolutely.
But I guess we'll never know.
No, that is a great point, because that is my next question. Like, what was the motive behind this entire situation? Because when you look at it, like you said, there tends to be a motive. And so when the police were saying, all right, what is that? Doesn't seem like it's robbery, because the house is located around other homes that appear to be wealthier or might have other things that are worth stealing or breaking into. There was a significant amount of cash left in the purses, right, in the house. And there were 3 cars outside that would deter your traditional burglar. I'm not going to break into a home, for example, that have 3 people at home or more. So, and also people coming in late at the night. It just doesn't really seem like a robbery. And so that does tend to say, like, is this personal? And even still yet, like, how did somebody get into the home without forced entry? Does that then provide another point in the column of this was personal? Because maybe this was somebody that they knew and that they let into the house.
Right.
Because it was late. That or very early. I guess it was like somewhere between 2:15 a.m. and 8 a.m. Somewhere in there.
I mean, that's where I'm leaning towards.
Right. I mean, this just seems so clean and clinical that it's planned. And if it's planned, then it must have been specifically about or for or around the mom, and then the girls just happen to be there at the same time. I don't know. Because like, or it's tough because also like, could one person pull this whole thing off and restrain these people?
Right.
Or pull them all out together?
I mean, I guess if you have if you're armed.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Especially, I've noted here that they didn't leave behind a single hair, fiber, or fingerprint. So whatever went down seems incredibly intentional. But we can keep theorizing, but I do want to dive into the theories that have been popularized and talked about around this case. One of the original investigators of this case theorized that the women's assailant took Cinnamon out of Cheryl's yard the night of June 6th, so the night prior, in an effort to gain access to the residence, basically coming later on and saying, hey, I found your dog, right? They would open the door, they would say, come on in, whatever.
Oh, damn, what a bait.
Right.
I'd fall for that.
The officer speculated that the attacker came to the house, knocked on the door, pretending to have rescued the dog after it wandered away from the home. The investigator then theorized that one of the women may have opened the door to retrieve Cinnamon and was overpowered by the assailant. Now, this is where a thought comes into my mind, and it's very much like out of the movies. But if someone's coming up, their porch light is probably on, right? At night, I would keep a porch light on probably. Or some light in general. It's just, I don't know, comfort, visibility.
Right.
He might walk up dead of the night with the actual dog, smashes the light, knocks on the door. You look out the peephole or whatever, and it's too dark to see who they are.
Yeah.
So if you somehow make it out, escape in some way or whatever, you don't know who it was. You don't have any way to see. So I think that's a very interesting theory.
Okay. That makes way too much sense for me. I mean, yeah, no. Then again,
It's wild.
because your mind just rushes in so many different directions. Then again, it could have
Yeah.
been broken prior, right? Or just overly reading into this. But dude, yes.
We'll just never know. We won't know because you won't be able to analyze the glass because it was thrown away. Because normally I would say you would pick up a piece of the glass, you'd look at it and you'd say, okay, does the inside portion of this glass, how dirty is that, to figure out how long it's been sitting there?
Exactly.
But man, that is such a spooky image to think, like 3 a.m, hey, I think your dog was scratching at my door. You don't see who they are. You can't see their face
terrifying.
because they smashed the light out. What do you do? Because even if you open the door, that is your dog. So you're going to open the door wider. Oh gosh, this is giving me goosebumps. Okay.
Yep.
So another theory that I want to dive into states that the perpetrator, whoever they were, had disguised themselves. Perhaps they had pretended to be a utility worker or some kind of serviceman in order to gain entry or some sort of easy access to the home. Because, I'll be real, 3 a.m. plus, I don't care if you're the best plumber in the world, you're not coming in.
Yeah, hell no.
But I don't know what kind of disguises could be entailed or how well this family knew this person. Maybe it was that close of a relative. I don't know.
God. I think that the interesting thing is that there just hasn't, or at least so far, there hasn't been like this family member. I was totally expecting to hear like this family member had like beef with with the mom or something like that, or
Yeah.
I don't know, some sort of like issue somewhere.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I don't know. And it's really interesting. And that's the other theory I wanted to discuss here, that it was theorized that, again, this perpetrator got to the house before the girls were there and broke the light prior to their arrival, that they had gained access to the house and at that point either abducted or killed or in some way apprehended Cheryl, the mother. But they were still at the scene when Susie and Stacy arrived, and so that some sort of ad hoc plan was initiated, right? Gunpoint, you get in the car, you drive, don't do anything stupid, and that's why she looks terrified, because she knows something happened to her mom, and then that comes in the eyewitness's story, like saw Susie driving, blah, 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 because the perpetrator's not going to drive if it's one person trying to apprehend 3 people.
Yeah, you're gonna force someone to drive for you. I mean, that's straightforward right there.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like anybody was, or doesn't sound, just from everything that I'm gathering, that anyone was tied up. So it must have been some sort of gunpoint situation like you mentioned. How else could you very cleanly get people to basically do what you want and leave everything behind? You just stand in the door and say, put your purses over there, put the dog in the bathroom and get out,
I think the big thing that makes me lean towards that is just the fact that it doesn't look like there was a sign of a struggle.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, someone came in and boom, firearm. So at that point, just like, do what this person says.
Yeah, it's spooky, man. But those are the kind of like the main theories around this case. But with that said, let's dive into some of the suspects. And then after that, these are just some general suspects that have been in and out of the investigation. But we'll end this with some of the lead suspects and why they are the lead suspects, what kind of keeps them on the table, as it were. So first up was Susie's ex-boyfriend. That was the first suspect to be investigated. He had been arrested for robbing graves, and Susie was allegedly going to testify against him, and so there lies the motive.
Oh, there it is.
Right.
Strokes last night on XFM 104.9, Ricky Gervais show.
With Steve Merchant.
Definitely.
Ahoy.
And little Carl Pilkington.
Little
over there.
KP, the K-Man.
Steve,
Yes.
don't worry anymore.
Okay.
I've procured some great gifts to give away. I was tired
Really?
of seeing all these other people getting gifts and that, and it was
Yeah.
all going to that O'Doddle and O'Diddley.
Diddley, yeah.
And Anderson and Sturgis, or at least she steals them herself.
Well, at least she steals herself to sell them to feed the habit, and that's
Yeah.
fine. I don't mind that, because he's
No.
industrious.
Exactly. But I have got Feeder, Echo Park, I've got the Essential Bob Dylan. Now that is a good giveaway.
That's a great giveaway.
And Reloaded 3.
Where did you buy these yourself?
No, little Carl found them.
I have to say, Carl, you've done an absolute dynamite job here, mate. This is great prizes.
And I thought we could play that trivia quiz where we're the challenge. If they get
Right.
someone to catch us out, maybe, or someone a question.
You confused me slightly. Explain again.
Well, we could play a little trivia quiz, couldn't we?
Right.
And then we could sell the fish.
Use
out
the
the
words that you need to
man.
complete the sentence,
And
Rick.
then, we could do this.
What's the quiz?
I don't know.
You've not thought this through.
Coldplay in Yellow.
You've got to keep talking, Rick. We're on the
Right.
radio.
I got bored.
Did you?
XFM 104.9.
Yeah, with Steve Merchant.
What I was saying was,
Yes.
we could have a little trivia quiz, right? This is how it works. Their phone in, yeah, right, and they'll pitch a question to us two, right? We won't know it. They'll tell Carl, and Carl write down the answer, yeah, or on his email, right? And then it might be something like, who was the first woman MP? And write down the answer, and they go, okay, Steve Ricky was the first woman MP. We'll write it down. You know, and you'll write down something like the Queen,
Yeah.
and I'll write down Britney Spears,
Yeah.
and they go, well, Ricky says Britney Spears, and the answer is, did you see?
Yes.
And then whoever's,
So they phone in, or can they email as well?
they can email as well, Steve.
Right. Okay, so let me just try and clarify this, because I didn't really follow that, and I
No.
know what the competition is.
Right.
People listening, phone in or email in with a question, a trivia
Yeah.
question. It can be about anything.
I don't
right?
do game shows.
But
like, it's
one,
not- I
but
don't-
one which we may be able to get, right? They phone in with that, or they email it in. But only Carl knows the answer. He asks us here in the studio the question. Ricky and I write it down independently. We hand it to Carl. We see who's got the right answer.
It's like 15-1, but 2-1.
And the great thing is that the best question that we'll vote on at the very end of the show can win these 3 CDs. We've got Feeder, Echo Park, The Essential Bob Dylan. That's a 2 CD set, Rick.
Maybe keep the questions highbrow to show our intellect, not things like pop and trivia and
Good idea.
And
And we've also
telly
got this
and
big
things.
compilation, Reloaded 3. That's also a 2 CD compilation.
We'll start phoning and emailing now.
Phoning,
like mental.
emailing
go
with
berserk.
your trivia
Absolutely
questions.
go berserk.
For Gervais.
I'm
and
best at
Merchant.
science.
Well, don't start
Well, don't
giving
say
hints. That's
that.
not
That's
fair,
just
because I'll
not
say
fair
I'm best
because-
at films if they want
Yeah,
me to
but I've
win.
already said don't do trivia and entertainment and that.
Well, they should do.
Well,
They should do
no.
trivia entertainment. Music and films is what they should do.
No, they shouldn't.
Or
That's
old
stupid.
TV.
That's the cliche of XFM listeners, and I know they're more intelligent than that.
They're not. They're not, Rick.
Yeah,
They're stupid people. They're stupid people, and they only know about a few things.
Garbage, Cherry Lips on XFM 104.9. Well, either they really want those CDs or they want to embarrass us. Because the phone lines are going mad. And
They are
Carl's
going mad. In
taking-
fact, we didn't even give out the phone number or the email, Rick. Shall I just give it out now?
Well, obviously don't need to.
Well, I ought to anyway, for those
on
that didn't hear it but didn't know it already.
Of it.
08700 800 1234. Sorry, that's not 08700 08700, because I started again because I sort of fluffed slightly.
Yeah, go on.
08700 800 1234.
And when he says he fluffed, like that's not how he got into television.
Exactly. Ricky.gervais@xfm.co.uk if you want to email the question, and only Carl can see the screen, so there's no cheating.
Probably people don't know what fluffing is, do they?
No, I don't think so, Rick. Carl, have you had a question?
What, already? Are we doing it now?
Should we do it
on,
now?
might as well.
I think we should just drip them in throughout the course of the show.
Yeah, you could one dripping them in. Go on. Ask us a
Right.
question.
I thought this was a good one. It's from Clive.
Go on in.
Clive, we've got a listener called Clive. Wow.
That's all right.
Who was the first James Bond?
Oh, is
Right.
this film one? I know
No,
that.
but wait a minute,
But
wait a minute.
I know this ambiguity because we've talked about
We've
it.
talked about this ambiguity before. You see, he might be deliberately embarrassing us because the old myth is that someone played it on radio
Yeah,
that we all know and love.
yeah.
Now, he should have specified, did he mean the film James Bond, the first
Well,
film
the thing
James
is,
Bond?
can I just say, we won't count this one because the definitive one, I've talked to Glyn about it as well, it's Dr. No was the first one of the team that we know
Sean
and
Connery.
love.
So Sean Connery's the first screen James Bond.
So we agree on that even if we're both wrong. What did he say it is?
I bet he said it was Bob Holness who played him on radio in like the 1950s.
He didn't say the radio bit, but he said Bob Holness.
From Blockbusters.
Yeah.
And I was drawing a little Blockbuster thing.
That's
There,
really
that-
spooky.
That's weird, isn't it?
But the thing about that is I'm worried if it might be a myth. It may be
Well,
a
no,
myth.
I don't think it is. It's that we can't.
One
count
point
that.
to me then.
No.
Yes.
No.
Well, you did. Did
definitely
you
not.
know it? Did you know it? Did
Yeah,
you
we
honest-
talked about
No
it.
rubbish. Yeah, but who? Well, if we talked about it, did I say it to you?
No, we agreed that it was Sean Connery because it just like we didn't count Casino Royale because you said it wasn't by the same team. And it
Yeah,
was
but
just
that wouldn't have been the first James Bond anyway, because that came later in the series. No, Rick.
No,
no.
there's no
Don't play
way.
the music.
There's no way.
That's clearly a point. You didn't know it was Bob Holness. He meant it was Bob Holness. I knew the answer. 1-0.
Well, fun-loving criminals, Scooby snacks. Anyway, it doesn't matter because we both agreed once in a pub that the right answer is Sean
Yeah,
Connery.
but wait a minute,
and we
wait a minute,
both
Rick,
knew
the
that.
point's not that. The man phoned in with a question, and the answer the man was after was Bob Holness.
Oh, okay.
And that's the answer
I'll tell you
I gave.
what, the answer I was after was me.
But that's
I
nonsense,
wanted- I
Rick.
wanted
He's
me
the
to que-
question master, the man who phoned in. That's ludicrous. You to face the facts.
You can't say what number am I thinking of. You've
That's-
got to, you've
what
got
are
to
you
be,
talking about?
It's got to be the real answer.
No, but I knew the answer he was after.
Oh, brilliant.
Yes, because that's, even if he's got it wrong, it's such common parlance now that Bob Holness was the first James Bond that I knew the answer. Face the facts.
Right, give us another question, Carl.
Jeez.
Give us another question.
God, he's a bad loser, isn't he?
I had a good one here, but
You've forgotten it?
Or
I sort of scribbled it down.
this is brilliant, isn't it?
Hang on a minute.
We can edit this out, can't we? It's not live, is it?
It's only a piler.
It's gonna this is going to look great when it comes out. Go on.
Which food?
Yeah.
Carl, you now making up the question.
No, it's just that I sort of took down the important bits.
But this is amazing. This is amazing radio. Go on.
Which food kind of doesn't make you fat?
Jeez.
What kind of a question is that?
Oh, this is
No, it is proper.
I love imagine this on the weakest link. What kind of food doesn't sort of make you it doesn't make you fat.
This is ludicrous.
Okay, do you want
Basically, no sort of calories in it.
me to celery?
Water.
Well, what do you mean? Do you mean a vegetable?
No,
do you mean
you're right. You're right. Apparently, you.
Yeah,
you,
it uses
you
up more
use
calories to
eating
bite it than
Yeah, but wait a minute, Rick.
one all.
No, it's not 1-0 because
Of
you're
course it
supposed
is.
to write it down.
You didn't know.
But you didn't. What do you mean I didn't know? You're supposed to write it down. That's the whole point. We're writing things
You
down.
said water. You said water.
But that's because I thought we weren't taking the question seriously because he didn't know what he's talking about. 1-0. We got to set the rules. This is ludicrous.
Bit too much like Portishead for my liking.
Was it?
Yeah.
I quite enjoyed it.
Beat a band. Well, that's because Portishead are from your neck of the woods, isn't it? Was it? Portishead, I think you'll find.
I'm embarrassed myself.
Right, another question, quick. Is this question a real question with a definitive answer? Or is it like, what is my most comfortable chair?
I don't know why people aren't going to maybe like Trivia Pursuit or something, just getting a question off that and then...
Because they're a little bit more discerning than that, Steve.
Rick, have you heard the questions? They don't know what they're talking about. This is stuff they've overheard in pubs.
Come on, ask it, Carl. I look at the Carl takes down and goes, what's that?
I know.
What am I meant to write? Go on then, ask this one.
Right. What sort? No. The Pope.
Yeah.
What semi-precious...
Sorry, Mrs. Robinson, we're going to have to let you go.
Yeah.
Go on.
You are the weakest link, Carl. Goodbye.
Yeah, go on.
The Pope.
Yeah, the Pope. Yeah, we've got the Pope. Yeah, that's not strictly a question.
He wears a...
He wears a dustman's hat. He wears gaurblimey trousers.
Does he
Yeah.
live in a council flat?
Yeah, he lives in a council flat.
He wears a semi-precious stone. What's the stone?
The Pope wears a semi-precious stone. What is the stone?
You mean, what is it called?
Yeah.
What is it called?
What, has it got like a kind of
Well,
papal
I
name?
think it's like, is it a
Is it-
18-carat one?
So we got to try and get
Right.
the carrot.
Yeah. you
Of
think
the
it's a-
Pope's big
He calls
diamond.
it Dennis. He calls it Dennis the Stone. Do they want do they want the type of gem it is, like
Or is there
diamond,
some kind of
jade,
papal name for
ruby,
it?
or do they want it like the Rosetta Stone, or
I don't know.
the I can't play a record. Play 2 records.
Let's not.
Where's your head at? Basement Jacks. Right. Okay. Let's get this.
Have we
right.
have we knocked this on the head then? Is this not happening?
Oh, here he is. Look.
Here he is.
Come in. He's.
How have you?
Oh, I don't believe
Oh,
that.
that's pathetic.
I do not believe that.
That's absolutely pathetic.
Now, they won't believe this, will they?
No.
Right,
No.
if I say that Jonathan Ross just got his massive member out, and he is a big lad, Come and sit down.
I've got your tickets, Mr. Gervais.
Thank you.
What's going on here then? I mean, why are you dropping off tickets?
Well, because, you know, in the spirit of the Comedy Awards, we like to have the rising young stars of the British Comedy
That's
Awards.
right, and that's me.
Well, we couldn't find any this year, so we've asked Ricky whether he would sit in the rising young star seat, and I wanted to deliver the tickets personally, so there's no excuses if he doesn't turn up later.
Yeah.
I always suspected that you were sort of pretty well endowed.
Yeah.
And now we've seen. You know, it's on webcam.
That was just one of my cocks.
That's the one you're wearing today.
Did you?
Don't say that. No, we were
This is
in
meant to be the happening young station. What's going on?
No, you can't say stuff like that.
You can't.
Just careful what you say. Look up to Julian Clary. 10 years in the wilderness, and he comes back in a person life.
10 years in
And
the
that can
wilderness.
happen to you.
That's Jesus you're thinking of, isn't it?
Just because you're on everything at the moment.
I walked in here and I came in there and I thought this is the young happening place, and what do I see in here? 3 old men sitting.
What are you talking about? I'm only 28, 27.
You all look, you're wrecked. You all look wrecked. You're
Well, that's because we're always partying.
I was looking for some youngsters. Where's the youngsters? I wanted to see some tight leather pants. I wanted to see some foxy chicks hanging on you every word. What is it? It's a bunch of old blokes and a bloke up there washing up in a sink.
But look at him. He even dresses for radio. Look
This
at
is
him.
ludicrous.
It's amazing. Looks like you're
I love the
one
fact
step
you were
away.
on the phone to Gervais last night, weren't you? Asking his advice
Yeah.
on clothes. Look at him. He's going for the man down the DSS.
I like that look. That's a nice look.
Isn't it? Thank
Have you got a single pair of trousers that aren't elasticated at the waist?
They're maternity jeans, aren't they? They've got a whole panel that pulls
The
forward.
thing is, what I do at the end of the week, I can pop these in a pan and I can make a nice soup with all the food that's encrusted in
That's
them.
his years as a homeless coming to the fore there.
Look at you,
But
one
why-
step away from Lawrence Llewellyn Bowen.
I'd like to be that bit closer.
But why are you dropping off tickets? Are you a little bit... Because I thought you were married and stuff. Why do you suddenly got this obsession with Gervais?
Because
I'm a bit rough, ain't I?
yeah, it's like when you see Dale Winton out with those rough boys. I'd like to get one of my own.
when a top celebrity in a lovely looking suit walks down the corridor with his penis out,
Yes.
Yeah.
I know that I'm still an
You
attractive
know
man.
you've arrived. I was inaugurated in the same way. For me, it was Des O'Connor. It's like it's the passing on of the baton, if I may use that euphemism. and you've been battened.
But it's fantastic.
Well,
it
it's gonna be-
is a pleasure. I don't think I'm complacent just because I'm mixed with people like you. I still wake up and think, I don't believe it. I'm mates with Jono.
Can I just point out one thing?
Jono.
I was listening to the show last week, and I heard you, as always, revealing a little too much about yourself, if you don't mind me saying so. Steve tried.
Not as much as you.
No, but that was just for the benefit of the room.
Yeah.
And talking about when you used to occasionally urinate in the sink.
Yeah.
When you were around my house last time and I came in and you looked a bit shifty. No, please reassure me.
It was more ownership. That
Yeah.
I was like, I went to my territory, and then other people that come in that go, has Gervais been round here? It's like just marking my territory.
Because my coffee the next morning had a hazelnut tang to it that I don't remember putting in.
Can I just say something? Because I mean, I used to, you know, mention to you, Gervais, when we first started getting involved in the business.
Yeah.
I used to say, if there was one celebrity I'd like to be friends with, it's Jonathan Ross.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, Ricky's befriended Jonathan Ross. I'm nowhere to be seen.
But
Not
Ricky
invited
told me-
round.
Ricky told me that I could be his friend, providing I never extended the arm of friendship. to
Right.
you.
Yeah, if you ever...
I thought as much.
He tries to keep everyone else down he works with, from the office, all the other shows. He
Yeah.
tries to keep them down. He's
I didn't even want
I'm
you to
number
come in.
one.
I wanted
Yeah.
to meet you on the steps.
Yeah.
I didn't even want to tell him you were around. But you called. He went, who's that? And he saw your name come up and he went, well, can I meet him?
Well, you're coming tonight, aren't you?
This isn't Radio 2, by the way. These links are way too long. This is snappy radio. We have to play...
Yeah.
You might
The
be
kids
John
have lost
Ross,
interest.
But
Put some
the kids want to hear Coldplay, Cut a Toad,
You know what I like?
Faithless.
How about some more of that instantly forgettable hip hop you play each week? One of those obscure
Go.
hip hop hooray. That's the
Thanks.
worst feature on British radio. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Wait a minute, I've heard your
As I was
quiz
saying
on
to
Radio
Bruce
2.
Forsyth
You're
the
having a
other day, I
laugh.
said the hip hop's had its day. You told me that one.
Put it away. Put it away.
I'm Carl.
Carl, how you doing?
I'm all right. Got a question for you.
Quiet man.
Got a question.
Yeah.
The Pope.
Yeah.
What semi-precious stone does the Pope wear?
It's easy.
Go on.
Topaz.
Is that the right answer?
I don't know. I might have wrote it down.
I'm really sorry, Jonathan.
It's not what he publicly admits to, but I have to know because I was hanging out with him at the Groucho one night, and he was saying, "Oh, look at this, look at this, look at that topaz. You can't buy that. Look
at that.
Vatican City."
Look at that. We can make a nice ring out of that, he said.
Didn't go anywhere, but thanks for asking. I better go. I've got to go. I've got to
Thank
go and buy
you.
some winkle pickers.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Enjoy
Nice to
it.
meet you, Stephen.
Yes.
Carl, I wish I could say it'd been a pleasure, but actually it was quite creepy.
See you later.
Question, please.
You too. Beautiful day.
Yep.
Now, I was just saying that's probably one of my singles of the year, but was it this year or the year before?
Oh, crumbs, I don't know.
It was, I think, was it 2000, the album? It was the first one off the album. Maybe that could be a question. No, we need the answer, don't
Well,
we?
we don't know the answer.
No, it's called...
Can I just ask, Jonathan Ross just came in there to drop off some tickets for the Comedy Award show that he's hosting
Yeah.
later this evening.
Yeah.
Interesting, of course, a man who's 40 and still thinks it's funny to get his penis out.
It is,
I love that. Because it's like, when's that novelty going to wear off?
74, 75, when it's just too horrible to show
Exactly,
in
yeah.
public, I imagine.
But so he dropped off some tickets for you.
Yeah.
Was asking you fashion advice last night.
Yeah.
He came after a 3-hour radio show he's just done on Radio 2. Good show, by the way, worth tuning in to. He came straight around here, dropped some tickets off for you. He's now got to go and rehearse that show.
A lovely man.
I was out with you last night.
Yeah.
Went into this pub, like kind of that we've been to a few times before. Went in there, and this guy came in and said, "Your usual table, Ricky? Your usual table." Can I just ask you 2 questions, Godfather? One is, have we won a prize tonight on
I
the National
don't
Comedy
know.
Awards?
We genuinely
And 2,
don't know.
Can you have someone iced for me? It's ludicrous. What have you suddenly got over all these people that they're doing all this for you? When have you suddenly become the daddy?
Well, I came from nowhere, and I've got Polaroids of the head of all the
Right, yeah,
stations.
yeah.
Exactly.
Because what I'm worried about is that, like, when we're wrapped up in our winter coats,
Yeah.
you're walking on there in your little sort of, little black overcoat, and I must look like your hood. Do you know what I mean? Like your goon that walks with you. Twice as tall.
Very much like Edward G. Robinson.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You are with
yeah.
the pug face, obviously.
Yeah. Well, don't go on about it.
Sorry, that was a bit
Freak.
hard. All right, no, I don't know. You just
Wow.
did that. There's something
We've
to
not.
be like that.
Even Jonathan Ross couldn't save this show.
No.
It is the only A celebrity I know.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
all
it.
out of ideas. I thought we'd have a trivia game. That's rubbish because he can't read.
All right.
Yeah, and that's what is it?
So
It's-
are we knocking the trivia game on the
Yeah, yeah.
Should we, let's have one final question.
what
What's the
the
answer?
answer? What about
I
the
don't
answer?
know. I don't know.
For the Pope one.
I don't know.
We couldn't even figure out the question, Carl.
What's the stone? What's the stone?
Hang on a minute.
Just entertain yourselves at home while Carl looks for the question.
Anthurst.
Amethyst.
Amethyst.
Yeah.
Anne Thirst. No, she was the first woman MP, I think you'll find. Amthirst. Ruby or Diamondo?
So have you got maybe a final question?
That's still
Carl, that
one
can
on it.
decide-
Okay,
is
do a
this one on
decider
there?
and then we knock this on the head.
Yeah.
Go on in.
What?
Who?
Have you not been practicing in all these? We've had ads, we've had music.
Oh, where? What?
Rick, I don't think we should call ITV later. With this.
Maybe he was talking about Jonathan's inquiry about sartorial elegance tonight. Where
Yes.
what?
Yeah.
Maybe he's just like summed up that
Yeah.
conversation in
What's
just
the
two.
most expensive pub in London? Ricky won't know because he never pays.
Hang on, wait a minute. What does that mean?
What does that mean? What mean to buy? I'll buy the pub. How much is that? It's £1 million,
No, like,
sir.
if you go in, according to the Time Out Guide 2001, if you went in there and bought a big round, it's a day pub.
It's an expensive pub.
Imagine this on Millionaire. Imagine that question
Why
on
is it all
Mastermind.
too vague?
I know your specialised subject, how much things are in that, and whether they make you fat when you eat them. Then
It's in London.
Is this like some guy went in the pub last night and thought, this is a bit pricey? This is the
I'm
most
not gonna
expensive
do-
pub
I'm
I've
gonna-
ever been in.
I'm going to expose them on Ricky and Steve's show.
But does it mean like maybe is it a pub or a club maybe where you've got to be a member?
No, it's a pub. I'll narrow it down. It's in Covent Garden.
Punch and Judy.
That's it.
Has he got it right?
Yeah.
Well,
2-1.
I have to hand it to you. Well done.
Yeah,
So
brilliant.
So who was that question from? Because maybe that they should get these 3 CDs.
Let's give them that.
Who is it, Carl?
There's no way of verifying that. That's probably libelous. They've probably
it's from
made.
the Time Out Guide.
Okay. All right.
Carl, who
What are
was
you
it?
moaning for? You got it right.
Yeah, I won. Yeah. I won.
Carl, who was it that won? Well, listen, they know, so they've won.
Yeah. Right.
This is genius radio. This is
I
brilliant.
tell you
We're
what's
slick.
letting us down. Him.
I know.
KP the P-Man. When he was just here to press buttons and it was cool. Now we let him on the air because we thought it was funny. We quite like him. He's digging a grave for us. Right, listen, this is a new feature I've introduced called Songs I'd Like to Play on the radio. and
Oh, this is falling apart.
and a friend of mine sent me a little CD of little treats and stuff. And one of them is this track. It's called Monkey Man. It's from called Monkey Man. That's from a double CD, not available in the shops. My friend Dave G made a compilation for me, birded it onto CD using modern technology. That's one of the tracks on there.
What's his name? What's his name?
Dave Greenwood, obviously breaking several copyright laws there.
Exactly.
I would not encourage anyone to make copies of anything for anyone. It's breaking
His
the law.
name again, if the police are listening?
Dave Greenwood lives in Nottingham. I can
How
give details.
dare he do that
it
for you?
sickens me, Rick.
He's making you receive, you know...
Stolen goods,
Yeah.
and there are various artists on there who've barely got a penny, who are losing money hand over fist. The Rolling Stones, for instance.
Yeah,
The
and
Doors.
XFM have done that as well, played it off, you know, and that's terrible. Now we've implicated those as well.
XFM are culpable, so is Dave G. Thankfully not us, Rick.
No.
We're just middlemen caught up in it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mr. Biggs behind this.
There's always
and we're
Mr.
just
Biggs,
pawns
sure.
in his game, aren't we?
And so that's, I'll be playing another track from that later on.
I've got a lovely couple of little tracks on my hip-hop selection.
Looking forward to it.
Is
Incidentally,
it
can I just ask, Rick, did
Mama
you
said
get
lock you out. What?
did you get a little gift here from XFM?
I did. I got a lovely little voucher here. It was very nice.
Yeah, very thoughtful. I've also got one. How much is yours for?
£25.
To spend at John Lewis or Waitrose, a little kind of gift voucher there.
I think I'll do Waitrose, because food, you can get a good lot of food for 25 quid.
You're absolutely right.
You can't get a lot of like haberdashery for 25 quid. So I'll be going with the food option.
The thing about the gift voucher, a lot of people will I'm sure receiving these over the Christmas period. The thing about the gift voucher is it's like here's £25,
Yeah.
but I've limited where you can spend it.
It's like they don't want to give money because that's go. Say this is like money, but not as versatile.
Exactly. You can't spend it in as many places. But it's the thing is that surely the thing about a gift is, you know, you don't want people to know how much it was.
And unless you're letting them make their ideas up for next year.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? If an aunt gives you like you know, a single, like a step single, and you've given her 25 quid at the body shop, you're saying, you know how much that single costs.
Exactly.
So do I. I'm not going to say, right?
Yeah.
Let's make up the difference next year, Sally, aren't we? You know what I mean? Let's spend 50 quid on me next year.
Yeah.
Do you know how much he got?
How much did you get? Did you get a gift voucher as well?
Yeah, but I work here all week.
Right. How much do you get?
150.
150 quid?
Yeah.
What, in gift vouchers?
Yeah.
To spend at the same places?
Mm.
I'd have to say, though, I mean, it's not a very inventive gift, is it?
It's a
Whoever
lovely
came up with
thought,
it,
though.
it's a lovely thought. It's wonderful to have £25 that I can only spend in 2 places I never go in. But I'm not looking at gift horse in the mouth.
Any
I'm not
ungrateful, anyway.
looking a gift horse in the mouth. It is a treat.
He spoke to Jonathan Ross like he was a normal person.
From someone whose dad buys him a spade for Christmas, I thought you'd be grateful.
But my only thought is that John Lewis and Waitrose, I mean, it's not very rock and roll. It's not very XFM, is it?
No,
I mean,
whereas-
a tattoo parlour, maybe, you know, in a
or
bike
a
shop.
piercing. I might get my face pierced, just a big
Exactly.
bolt through my head.
But I mean,
Yeah.
aren't they a little bit like The Man? Aren't they a little bit mainstream? Rick?
Yeah.
Eh?
What would
I thought
Billy
we were rock
say
and
about
roll.
this? Oh, play a record and don't make it a square record. Something on an indie label or something. Or something that hasn't been even recorded.
Yeah, that can't even become available ever.
Yeah, I don't know what instruments they're playing.
Oh, not the guitar.
Sum 41. In Too Deep. All right, Steve?
Mhm.
It's been a long time,
Eh?
hasn't it?
What has?
Like that seemed a long time, all that music we've
Yes,
played.
no, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's annoying, actually, that Carl never went to the email, because the questions have been sent in there.
Are they good?
Questions, and they've all been sort of neatly spat out with the correct answer. For instance, I might have asked you this if I was the
Go
quizmaster,
on.
Rick. How many noses do slugs have?
Oh, I
Which
think
is an
it's
interesting
4.
It is 4.
Yeah.
Point to you there. Let me just see if I can find another one. Who, according to the current issue of Viz, is a cycloptic pop temptress?
Oh, don't know. Is it a pun on her having one eye and being
Yeah.
sounding like?
Cycloptic is the clue. There's
Yeah.
only one pop temptress.
Oh, it's Gabrielle.
Of course.
Yeah.
2 points.
Mine are better, he didn't get them. These are rubbish.
Have you ever watched a quiz show?
Because I can understand the question. They're rubbish, I suppose, aren't they? That gives me a chance to know what the answer is required. Go on.
Let me see if I can find another one for you. No, you're never going to get that one. That's too hard.
Oh no, that just
That just teases you more,
Yeah.
doesn't it? What's the name of? No, that's boring. That one. Sorry,
there you
it's
go.
beginning to fall apart again now. Here we are. What's the proper name for Big Ben?
Is it St Stephen's Tower?
You know, it absolutely is. That's 3 out of 3. That's fantastic.
Yeah, because the bell named after something like Benjamin so and so works in it. It's St Stephen's Tower, and that's the big bell.
It's actually, in a weird way, I didn't know any of those. So it's actually quite good that we did kind of balls it up with Carl, because otherwise there'd have been egg on my face.
Yeah, but I still won. I just won less.
Oh, did you? Yeah, you did win.
Yeah.
I've already forgotten. I already wiped that out of my memory.
Yeah, but hey, Steve, it's not me that's the real winner. It's Neil who asked that question
About pubs.
about pubs,
He
and
was
he's
the
got
3
those 3 CDs. Just tell him what they are again. Just
Feeder, Echo Park, a compilation called Reloaded 3, lots of great stuff on there, and the Essential Bob Dylan 2 CD.
Have you
set.
called him and told him?
No, not yet.
This is such a shambles, isn't it? Because what if he goes out or something?
Actually, if he's listening, can he give us a call?
That is so lazy.
Can't we call him like Tarrant would?
I would have
And
had his
surprise him.
number.
You've not got his number?
I forgot.
Oh, this is unbelievable.
I said get the numbers, Carl.
I wanted to go for the Pope one.
Carl, do you actually work here in the week? Or, like, did you just, you know, like in a film when they knock someone on the head, put on the spacesuit and go to the
Yeah.
moon?
Is it
instead?
like is it like Secret of My Success with Michael J. Fox? You actually work in the post room, but Saturdays there's no one around that recognises you.
So you pretend that you're a producer?
Yeah.
Because you don't seem to know any of the rules.
Because I reckon that name's made up.
When did I say a producer? When did I say I was?
Carl Pinkerton is a name that you'd come up with on the spot.
No, he doesn't work. No, he's not a producer. He says he works in sound.
He works
That's what
in
he says.
sound.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. Work with this. This is my song for the lovers. It's a beautiful track. I've played it before. I'll play it again. It's one of my favourite tracks of all time. It's Bob Dylan. If You See Her, Say Hello. Here's a little bit of trivia for her. This is the last song I ever played on the old XFM before
Wow.
they came in and said, "Okay, you can go now."
That's incredible.
And it.
Bringing tears to my eyes.
Lovely. She might be in Tangiers. I mean, he's having a go.
I mean, if you're going to go to Tangiers on the off chance to try and find her, I wouldn't bother.
yeah,
You know.
but I mean, you know, he's
certainly if you're
thinking-
going to be there, then
he's
have a look for
desperate.
her.
He's desperate. He's going. Well, she might be in Tangiers. Have you checked upstairs? She's definitely not upstairs. just have a look. Well, anyway, that was Song for the Lovers. But because I'm so excited about having such great prizes to give away for the first time, some albums that Carl found,
I got 'em.
we've got the lucky winner on the line. Hi, Neil. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, Ricky.
Hi. You're a winner with XFM.
Fantastic.
yeah. Do you like Feeder? They're a good group, aren't they?
See, well, yeah, the kids seem to like him.
They do. The kids like them, and then Bob Dylan. He's a great, lovely bloke with a guitar, isn't he?
You're working hard, aren't you?
I'm fed up with this, mate. Really, honestly, I just don't know what else to do. I come in every week. I try and
Right.
do. Yeah,
You have to write a new series of The Office.
I'm
That's what you have to do.
I'm trying, but I've got voiceover work now, so there's more money in that. You know.
You're everywhere.
Yeah.
Woolies adverts.
Yeah.
Ooh, sorry, I shouldn't mention that shit on the radio.
No, it's all right. It's all
So,
right.
Neil, Steve Merchant here. Will you be looking forward to receiving these albums? You've got Feeder, Echo Park, Bob Dylan album, the best of, and a compilation. You looking forward to them?
Oh, absolutely. You know, I mean, it's going to really lift my Christmas haul. I'm not going to get to go home this year, so that's going to make up for it, I'm sure.
Neil, what of those three? Which one will you be putting on first?
I think Feeder, Echo Park, because the kids seem to like it.
Okay.
Excellent. Thanks very much.
What will you be doing for the rest of the weekend? Are you going to be chilling out?
I'm chilling, man. I'm freezing. I'm playing golf right now.
That's madness.
It's very cold
Yeah.
out here.
What's your handicap?
What's my handicap? My short game's terrible, but
Right, yeah. You're going to be watching the National Comedy Awards this evening. I hear that The Office is nominated.
you guys are the shoe-in.
Sorry?
You're a shoe-in. It's yours.
Thank you. I don't know what a shoe-in is, but I'd like to go to
I
one.
think it means like foot in the door.
Lovely.
Yeah,
Does
no,
it?
not foot in the door. It's like
No.
it's yours. Your name's already on it.
Oh, really?
I
Wow.
would think so. Yeah. Well, why would Ross stop around?
I don't think he makes the decisions.
Neil,
but
thanks very much for calling. Those prizes are going to be winging their way to you.
We're just like real DJs, aren't we, Neil? Just say we're just like real DJs, and we'll leave you alone.
You guys are just like real DJs.
Enjoy
Thanks
your
very
game.
much. Cheers, bye. Step on my old size 9 stereophonics.
Absolutely.
Well, talking to Neil, it all brought it home. You know, maybe I should give it a little bit back.
Yeah, you've had
I'm-
a good year.
I'm hanging out with Jonathan Ross. I'm
Exactly.
doing ads,
Yeah.
right? But I care. I'm still in touch. You know what I mean? I'm still down with it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And, you know, it's coming up to the time of year where we should, you know, care about people less fortunate than themselves. And what I've done, I've recorded a Christmas single.
That's beautiful.
And all proceeds are going, you know, to, little sick people and that. And
Are there going to be any proceeds?
there's going to be not a sausage.
Right.
So I'm
Right.
safe.
But I'll tell you this, I was thinking actually, I was listening this morning, and you go in, doing some Christmas shopping, you go in the shops, and there's always, you know, Walking in a Winter Wonderland, and all those songs. You know, no one writes those sort of things anymore.
No.
Uh,
Well, you're wrong, Steve.
really?
Listen to this. It's
What's it
called
called?
Don't Cry, It's Christmas.
Let's hear it. Ricky Gervais.
cry, my baby. Santa's coming soon. Though you ain't got a mommy or daddy, Santa still loves you. And he's riding on his reindeer to trample down the gloom. So don't cry, my baby. Santa gonna make it soon. Don't cry, my baby. Santa's feeling kind, though you know you never see him. He's not just in your mind, and it's not that he's invisible. It's because you're going blind. So don't cry, It's Christmas. Santa's still on time. Don't cry, my baby. Santa's on his way. You know he's got 6 billion children, and he's only got one day. You've got slightly less than that. If I were you, I'd pray. So don't cry. It's Christmas. You're nearly 10. It's a little gay.
Do you know, as far as I'm concerned, it's already become a standard. One of the classics.
Thanks. There's a star. Ash.
Good.
It's a great show so far, isn't it?
Enjoying it, Rick, but I'll tell you this, what worries me is
on.
something we've not done, which is what we've not taken on board some stuff I've heard from the management. They've said they've enjoyed the kind of light-hearted flippery, in
Yeah.
the past on the
Yeah,
show,
yeah,
and
yeah.
The likes of Jonathan Ross getting
Just-
their
just
knobs
popping in.
out.
Yeah.
But they just feel that sometimes it's a little bit cheap. Rick,
No,
a little
in
bit
what-
crass, and they
in
just
what
want us to
way?
perhaps be a little bit more highbrow at times, a little
Well,
bit
look at
more
that, 'cause I mean-
thoughtful. Well, you're a smart guy.
I am,
know
yeah.
that.
Well, I've proved that with Slugs having 4 noses and Stephen's Tower.
Can I ask you, Rick, about politics?
What do you want to know? What do you want to know? Because
Politics.
I am a political person.
I thought as much.
Go on.
What on the politics? What do you make of who to vote for?
Vote for the government, whoever's in the government.
Yeah.
That's
The
it.
Liberals ever?
No, not if they're not in government. No,
Okay. What about the foot and mouth, which a lot of people are worried about?
Don't worry about it.
No?
No.
Recession is hit, and a lot of people are losing their jobs. What should they do about
Get
it?
another one.
Get another job.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, this is, I mean, you can have this for free. If you do lose your job or something, get another one, but get one that's even better than the one you lost.
Right. Okay, good advice.
Yeah.
Maybe if you were just like kind of the post boy before, like Carl.
Get in charge of the company, get a manager's job.
Right, become director general or something.
More money.
Good.
And don't
Oh.
lose that one.
Okay. And what else is concerning people? No, we get calls all the time, Rick, to the station. People saying I'm worried about the war in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
What do you make of the war? Is it
well-
one of your favourites?
Well, what? No. My favourite. All war's bad. My favourite.
I'm putting you on the spot here. What is your favourite?
Falklands.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Is it? The Falklands War?
It was a range war.
What does that
Do you
mean?
know
I
what that means,
don't know.
Carl?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember drawing pictures at school and that.
Yeah, it means that our missiles could go sort of 17 kilometres, and the Argies only had missiles that go like 9 kilometres. So we just parked our boats about 12, 13 kilometres off it, and we were shelling them. Shelling it out of there, right? And theirs were falling in the water.
Yeah.
So it's the war equivalent of holding a midget at arm's length.
Right, and he's trying to punch you.
And he can't reach,
Yeah.
and you're just kicking him in the balls at will. That was,
Rick, a lot of people talk about WW1 as being the Great War. Was it a great war for you?
no, it was a good war. It wasn't a great war.
Right. What's the problem for
Well,
you?
I like the bayonets and the trenches and all that stuff, but I could have done without the poetry.
Right.
Only because the poetry's a little bit bent. And
Okay.
and what I'm saying is the only time that it isn't bent in a war